Recently on my way to work, I was struck by a bit of an epiphany. I don't know why, but I couldn't help thinking, here I am in my late 40s. If I live according to national averages, I've got another 30, maybe 40 years left of life. What have I done with the last 50 or so years of my life? What will I do with the next 30 or 40? In the scope of human history, certainly within our country, certainly within our city, within the church I love, within my ministry to Christian schools, at the end of the day, I'm just here for a blip, for a small part of that larger story. You see, it's easy for us to focus on our personal existence, the here and now, the existence of those we care about most. It's hard to pause and realize that what happens after my life also says a lot not only about what I'm living for today, but also a lot about my worldview. And in many ways, you can simplify a lot of different worldviews in terms of what do we believe about eternity, whether or not we believe in one. You see, most non-religious worldviews, you call them secular worldviews, and secular means more than just non-religious. The word secular itself deals with, and that the root of secular comes from a Latin word, seculum, this idea that the world is what seculum is. The world, not just in terms of the ball, the globe, what you see from outer space, that it's focusing on the culture of the day, the world around us, the present age. It's very much a focus on the world and the here and now. So secularism is sort of like this worldism, this dayism. There's nothing beyond this. It's really all we have. That's what it means by secular. So obviously, you don't believe in eternity. You don't believe in the supernatural. It's just the world in the here and now. As opposed to that, you have other more, you could say, religious worldviews that believes in some level of transcendence, believes in an afterlife, believes in something eternal. And obviously, even when you go to non-religious funerals, people say something about the eternal. They can't help it. That there's something deep inside us where we sort of realize that there's got to be something more. And obviously, like I said, at the end of the day, we tend to focus on just this is all there is. It's hard to live in light of eternity. But living in light of eternity and in recognition of eternity is a core foundation of the Christian worldview. Because Christians do believe that there is something more, but it's not just that. We believe in the eternal because we believe in God. So when you look at some of the big questions of any worldview, and specifically within the Christian worldview, the notion of eternity is a very big part of what Christians hold to be true. Because when we say, well, what's really out there, our worldviews believe something about what's really out there. The Christians and a Christian worldview says, well, God is ultimate, not us, and God is eternal. He precedes us, just like Rick Warren's famous book, The Purpose-Driven Life, says, it's not about you. Actually, God is first. I once heard John Piper say, well, actually, in some ways, the first 4 words in the Bible are kind of the most important words in the Bible. In the beginning, God. God preceded everything else because God is eternal. He doesn't have a beginning. He doesn't have an ending. And actually, in any worldview, if your understanding of God is anything other than that, that's not God. That's not absolute. That's some kind of demigod, some kind of lesser God. But Christians would say that God, nothing made God. God didn't even make himself. He's just always been because he's God. In many ways, that's a definition of what it means to be God. And as a result, within the Christian worldview, everything else springs out of that. You think about a Christian understanding of truth and knowledge. Christians believe that truth is higher than us. It's outside of us. We don't make truth. Truth is something that we depend upon God and his character and nature for. We find it in his revelation. But you could talk about truth very much so that truth is eternal, just as God is, because God is the author and source of truth. We think about ourselves, well, we don't have an eternal beginning. We have a finite starting point, but humans are going to live forever. We're not going to just cease to exist. Well, if that's true, the decisions we make with our life really matter. You can't merely just wish for someone to die. That's a really, really, really big and critical thing to even think about. As C.S. Lewis says, considering the weight of glory, you've never met an ordinary person, considering the eternal nature of humanity, because we believe in a soul. You see, once you begin to concede that there is an eternity, it begins to trickle down into all of these big questions that Christians believe. You cannot have a Christian worldview without a belief in the eternal. But it's not just that it's something that we happen to believe, that it's one of those vital aspects of a Christian worldview, and it should dictate how we view today. Christians should live as though we believe in eternity. It should have real life, tangible, practical implications. We believe in the resurrection of the dead. We believe that one day Jesus is going to come again, and that's going to usher in something for the rest of eternity. This world, yes, we do talk about it being radically changed, as J.R.R. Tolkien says that he's going to make all sad things come untrue, but for eternity. There will be no pain nor tears, but for eternity. And honestly, that's an uncomfortable notion because we can't conceive of such. And even there, that's a reminder that there is something higher than us. We are finite beings, and we're also going to live eternity. Both are true. We're not infinite. We will never be infinite. But we will live eternally. God's people will. Eternity is a big, big part of the worldview. It's not just a doctrine that Christians believe, but that doctrine begins to have serious ramifications. So going back to what I first said, I've only got 30 or 40, maybe less years than that. And that's what really matters. And what I do today is not just about me and what I do today, but to begin to ask questions to say, am I living as though I believe eternity is a real thing? Am I living for eternity? Am I thinking about Christian education for eternity? Am I thinking about my children, my parenting, my relationship with my wife for eternity? To live that way, because that's actually what it means to have a Christian worldview. That we don't just believe some Christian things, that we begin to say, how do those Christian things begin to influence the way I live today? Living today in light of eternity, because we believe that eternity is a real thing, and because we believe that God is eternal, and because we believe that God made us for eternity in one of two places. Living in light of eternity, living because we believe in eternity, and living as though we believe that eternity, the very notion and idea of eternity, is a vital part, it's a key part, a necessary part of the Christian worldview, and part of what separates us from any of the secular worldviews. Thanks so much for listening to our show. If you like what you heard, subscribe, leave us a comment, or share with a friend. To find out more about Renew Education, visit our website at www.renew-education.org. Watch us on our YouTube channel for various podcast episodes, YouTube shorts, and Worldview brieflies. And you can listen to our show wherever podcast episodes are found.